Hi guys, it's Matt here from Oathwire. It's great to see you again, and this is episode 45. And today I've got a guest returning, co-host of the mostest, the bestest, Michael. Welcome back.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast with you, and it's great to be back on Oathwire in general. You're kind of short selling me by saying I was a guest returning. I am, of course, a co-host.
Indeed, you are a guest co-host, the finest co-host known to Oathwire. So yeah, no, definitely you're my guest and my co-host, and it's a pleasure to have you back after a long hiatus for you. So, what's new? I think that's what we're going to be going straight into. I
Well,
don't think there's
give me
anything.
just a second here to congratulate you on becoming the new host of Oathwire. That's fantastic.
Thank
Taking
you very
over
much.
for Chris.
Yeah,
It was a contest, as you said, to see who could get Joseph A. McCullough on first, and you won that. But you
I
told
did.
me his name was Joseph B. McCullough, and
I
that's the
did.
guy I kept emailing, and he kept saying, "Leave me alone." So, well done on that front. But also a fantastic interview with Mr. McCullough. I enjoyed listening to that a lot, and I'm really glad that you're taking over for Chris.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful to be able to do this. To be honest, I am enjoying it as I always have, and yeah, I hope I can keep giving the listeners what they want and keep people entertained for an hour or so while they're painting. So every week.
Well, Chris didn't tell me he was going to be quitting the podcast, but it does explain why he stopped returning my text messages. So it's all falling into place now.
Yeah, no, hopefully we will have Chris back on. So he has obviously about to uh, gain another family member. So in the not so very distant future. So once he's got through all that, he's going to be back with us and co-hosting. Well, we'll guest him actually, Michael. I think I'll just turn him into a guest.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
And even after they welcome that new member, that's 3 kids in that household. And I keep telling him there's ways to prevent that, but he doesn't want to seem to listen to me.
Oh,
So even after that new addition comes in, he's going to be struggling for time. But I hope he can make it on. That's for sure.
yeah, no, definitely. He's yeah. I'm hoping that we can all get on for episode 52. I think a year of Oathwire. That's going to be worth all three of us being on there for. So, Chris, I'm hunting you down. That'll be in February time. So there we go. Yeah. So thank you again, and we'll move on to what's new. What is new? There's not a lot out there in the world of Oathmark at the moment that's new. I know there are figures in the process of being worked on for release in next year, so exciting stuff there. It'll be there's obviously lots of other things going on around there, but that's kind of it really from my point of view. I'm doing still getting stuff painted, still getting through my dwarves. There was, I know this is, there was just an amazing game of Siege Warfare at Ilford Club in London. They posted it up. I was meant to be at that, and I'm so annoyed that I couldn't make it. But I had some personal stuff come up, which meant I had to stay where I live and miss out on what looked like a fabulous day. So yeah, I'm going to hopefully go down and see them again, but we're going to pummel them for their ideas on siege warfare because everybody wants to see warfare in English. He says, but what's new with you, Michael?
Well, I try to keep abreast of what's going on YouTube, and Scruffy Crow a little while ago posted a really nice video on restoration of an Oathmark siege tower. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, make sure you do. And then we have a new battle report from The Right Way to Roleplay with DM James, and he's been doing Oathmark content for quite a bit, but this is his first time actually playing and posting a video. So they get a couple of rules wrong, but overall, it's a pretty good rundown of a battle. So make sure you check that out too, because more
Thanks.
Oathmark content is better. So
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that, so I'll have to Was that the guy that did the how-to videos?
No, he does a lot of videos where he just kind of talks and gives his thoughts about the game.
Okay.
Seems like a really cool dude. Calls everyone bros, and then he had a game with his friend. It's about an hour and 10-minute long video where it's the static camera as opposed to the handheld camera. So overall, I thought the production quality for the first time out was really good. So it was between elves and humans, and they played straight species there. So always fun.
Sounds good. I am going to be going down and recording something with an American this weekend, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. Armand, who I have done a battle report with previously. So I'm going to go down to his, and we are going to do 2,000 points. He's been picking up his army. So 2,500 maybe. It depends on what he's finished, and we're going to try and get that recorded up there. So,
what army are you bringing for that one?
I am going to do a elf dwarf mix. That's what I've got because I've painted up those new dwarfs, and they need an outing. So we're going to have that going onto the field, which looks. I think the list I've come up with is quite interesting. So.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be pretty solid on activation.
Yeah.
You won't have to worry about them not doing what you're asking them to do.
Absolutely, just trudging up the middle, going, boom, boom, boom. But I just I've painted them, and I'm like, they need an outing. So he did beat me last time, so I definitely feel that I owe him one back. So.
Well, I too have a game coming up against an American this weekend. It's my old friend Jim, and we're going to see if we're going to record it or not. But I think we're going to have time to actually record on Saturday in my new game room. So one of the reasons I've been missing in action is because I just moved house. And so we're still getting things straight here. It hasn't left any time for hobby. So I'm looking forward to getting everything organized. You can't see it, listeners, but Matt can see behind me. It's just a bunch of boxes right now that are clearly moving along too slowly as far as unpacking, but we're going to get done by Saturday, and Jim's going to come over, and it's going to be Night Falls, which is my undead / Skaven kingdom, against his Dawn Alliance, which is elves and halflings. And so far I'm 0-3 in this campaign, so I got to pull it together, getting some revenants painted up, hopefully be a little bit more sticky than what the Skaven managed to be for me, and can finally take it to them.
Sounds good. Hopefully that gets recorded. Hopefully, guys. It's looking like a good games room to me, from what I can see. Fantastic lighting, everything's looking set for some more excellent battle reports from War Corgi. So,
I'm out of the kind of cold, unfinished basement into a nice, solid game room. It was designed with games in mind, so hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Okay, so going to move on into our main topic for this afternoon, or this morning, depends where you are. But so we are going to cover some battle tactics. So we've had a bit of a chat, and we're going to cover activations and speed. So, Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you start.
Okay, let's start with activations, Matt. And what I'm talking about there is the number of activations or units that you have on the table. And so in certain games, if you get an advantage where you're really out activating, or you have a lot more units to activate than your opponent, it can really give you a decisive advantage. So I want to talk a little bit about that with Oathmark, because what you sacrifice to gain more activations in I take a turn, you take a turn, I take a turn, and we're moving units one by one, is you're not getting the big blocky units that you could get if you just put all those units together. So the question is, does out activating your opponent have a meaningful advantage in this game, or does it not? And that's kind of what I want to discuss with you first. So what's your initial impression? Do you go for a lot of activations, or do you like the big bulky units that perform kind of like Death Stars?
Yeah, as you say, I am a Death Star fan, certainly with my elves. If I'm going to take my bow, elf bow, I'm looking for a minimum of 15 on that, just because you get the +2 rank, so and so it's a powerful unit, and I'm not looking to deploy any 5s or anything like that. Most of the time when I'm playing, my regular guys that I play against, I'm usually have less activations than them. I find I'm out deployed because I can't. Obviously, that's the major issue, is I can't hide what I want, my intentions as well, with the less activations. But once I get into the battle, I don't think it's a massive handicap, to be honest.
Well, that's a really good point on deployment. So I'm the exact opposite for you, and I don't know if it works out for me. You can watch my videos and judge for yourself. But I tend to run a lot of smaller units, especially when it comes to archers. And I think the new skirmish formation that we got kind of facilitates that.
It definitely does.
But deployment is the first time that you really see it impact the game, because you lay down a unit and your opponent lays down a unit, and this is one of those games where you fight your deployment more or less. You're not going to do any kind of crazy maneuvering where things are going to go zigzag across the board and kind of be everywhere like some other games. You're going to put your soldiers out there and they're going to fight kind of in the area that they're at. So that's a really important part that you're bringing up there. Important point. Now, as far as kind of hiding your intentions, I would argue that's a little bit less important when you're running Death Stars, because there's no subterfuge involved, right? You just have these big units, and like you said, you're marching down the middle, and you're saying, "Come get me."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they also look. I think there's a twofold thing on there. I think you got that Death Star. It garners attention. And people look at it and go, oh no, and then you can go and do something on the sides with something, and you go, well, I'm going to stick this out on the flanks, and I'm going to, or just just off the flank, and do something interesting with this. Well, the guys are concentrating on avoiding my 20 elf archers or my 20 human archers or whatever, and for me, you can use them in both ways. If you've got something like Wolvers or something like that, which I use as well, I usually pop them out, and they get ignored if I've got Death Stars on the table, and then I can run them into things like catapults and stuff like that. So when I'm sort of like using, they are useful for distractions, and people sit there and look at it and go, oh, well, it's obvious what he's going to do, and that's kind of it. It is obvious. I'm going to try and get my archers to turn you into a pincushion, and hit you up with some cavalry, because I like cavalry, so I do have those, or some sort of elven warriors or some other sort of form of warriors that I usually use. So that's kind of what I do. But then I'm running stuff in to sort of do the interference and try and get into the back row, especially if my friend's playing. He's undead, so if I can go after his necromancers, so he can get his skeletons disappear without me having to take them all on, is even better.
Yeah, it's always the center of gravity for any undead player. So I find if you do have more activations, it does give you a little bit more flexibility on that deployment, but you really need to take advantage of that, right? If you don't, then you're kind of wasting one of the main benefits of out deploying and out activating your enemy. And you can either spread the field. I think you spread the field more effectively when you have more units. And that's a double-edged sword as usual. So it makes command a little bit harder to keep units in range.
Yes.
But at the same time, it does give your opponent a lot more to think about if you're going to be approaching him from different angles with different forces, especially because he's already locked in, because he's laid out his 8 units and you're ready to deploy your big units as 9, 10, and 11. So you can really do some misdirection and cause him some missteps early in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. And with like your goblins and your orcs, your lower costing stuff, you probably are going to outnumber them even if you put some big chunks in there. But you can break them down a bit further and do some interesting things. The one thing I try and do with, if I've got those big blocks, is I just refuse a flank. I'll put something out on the flank, and because they've got so much, they can't cram it all on the table. So I know there's going to be 2 or 3 units over there that are going to have to now sideways march, so I can ignore them for a bit. So that's another thing you can sort of chuck out there. So
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to actually playing the game, being able to out-activate your opponent has a couple critical components to it where it helps you out. First is you can wait on them to activate their major units and see what they're doing. And then, of course, if a unit's already been activated and then it gets hit in melee combat, it's suffering a -1 penalty.
absolutely.
So being able to choose when and where some of those combats happen certainly helps. It also allows you to hit units on multiple facings, so you can lock them up in the front, and then a few activations later, they're not able to stop your flankers from coming in because everything they have has already been activated. And then lastly, if you have a lot of archers, you can force them to come to you before you activate those archers to get them closer to range. And in a lot of scenarios, they just don't have a choice but to come towards you.
Yeah.
But if you have less activations, you might have to activate those archers early with nothing in range. So definite advantages there for a larger number of activations.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I've had it done to me, and I'd sit there and you can see it happening. And if you've got those, I think if you're going to play the way I do, I think I'm quite aggressive. So and I try and get into what I need to do quickly. You can't muck around to let them think about what they're gonna to do, get those flanks. But inevitably, you're going to have to feed something into a flank. So that's when you deploy. You have to think about, what am I going to lose? And if I'm playing our human list that I've got, then I chuck some human warriors out to be fed into something, so he thinks he's winning until all of a sudden he's got half his units just running away because I've pin cushioned them and charging them in with the elf warriors. And that's kind of where I went with the thinking with the dwarves, because I can then, those dwarves haven't got that glass jaw that my elves have, and maybe can stick around a little bit more and do a bit more cutting and smashing while I'm trying to pin cushion everybody and things. So I don't know. I've lost games and I've won games doing it. So and I've played heavy human lists with lots of units on, and just a few sprinklings of elves, and I've lost that as well. So I've had enough units. So
It means it's well balanced, and there might not be a right answer to this.
yeah, absolutely.
So the most efficient way to get a unit off the board is to panic them off the board. It's very hard to kill a unit of 20, but sometimes you can kill a soldier and they fail a morale check, and you kill another model and they fail a second morale check, and now all 20 of them are gone.
Yes.
So depending on who you're playing against, what species are playing, there's some advantages to making them take multiple morale tests, and that can be accomplished with a lot of activations. You have 4 units of 5 archers hitting orcs. Chances are they're gonna, as long as they take a casualty, they're eventually gonna fail one of the morale test.
Yeah.
If you have the same setup but you're going against elves, maybe in that case it's more advantageous to have 1 unit of 20 archers, so you can do enough damage where there's a decent chance that they actually fail that morale test.
Yeah.
So it's not just about whether one play style works for you or not. You also have to kind of look at what opposing kingdom you're going up against, and whether you want them to take multiple morale tests, or if you want to, better your chances when they do have to take those morale tests, to have them to become disordered and eventually panicked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'll try and stick some rangers in my unit, in my list. So I'll have a 10-man unit of Rangers to do precisely that. So we'll get the 15, 20. You get that, making them sure they're having to roll the 2 dice and they've got 9s, because 10 obviously automatic pass, but you're rolling 9s to to get a pass on your morale, and then you hit them with the 10 afterwards, and hopefully then you can split them. I mean, the on the opposite side, depending on what you're playing, you've got those lots of units hanging out, sort of trying to do that. You can then, if you could do the damage to them, and then you can get cascading morale back onto them. So it can be a bit dodgy at the moment at times as well. So.
Well, Chris always pointed out that if you're playing with something that has a high activation number of 5 or 6, the chances of you panicking are obviously greater.
Yes.
And so then you have to ask yourself, do I want to panic with a unit of 8 guys remaining or a unit of 18 guys remaining?
Yes.
So some of the species, tend to do better. Obviously, you're getting the morale bonus if you have multiple ranks, but some of the species tend to do better with those smaller units because you're not worried about 5 guys panicking off the board when each of those soldiers cost 8 or 9 points. Halflings fall into this category as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Halflings are going to be in those lower points, and I suppose if I hadn't thought of it that way before, as if you're going to lose 8 guys instead of those 18, because yeah, it's going to happen, isn't it? Even with the rank bonus, it's still very difficult.
Right, and that rank bonus is only ever a +1, no matter how many ranks you have past the second one. So it can only do so much to help you.
Yeah, that's very true.
So the last thing that I'll bring up when it comes to actual gameplay is you have 5 basic scenarios in the books. I think the 2 where you play for points, it's a wash whether or not you have more activations because it goes by model count for not units destroyed, right?
Yeah.
It goes by models. But Oathmark's Chance Encounter and Cross the River, there's some pluses and minuses to having more activations or having less activations sometimes for those 3. So let's take Oathmarks, for example. Well, you're spread out across the board on that 6x4 table. Having some more units in there kind of gives you some flexibility to attack at different points and try to knock over 2 of those Oathmarks. Always a hard task, but I think it's a little bit easier on offense if you have more units.
Yeah.
Well, the defender might want less units because he's defending fixed points, and so he doesn't need to worry about that nearly as much. Chance Encounter on the offense, obviously, you got to get 4 units across the board.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I believe it's easier if you have multiple units trying to make that run across the board. But at the same time, you're having to bring units in from reserves each turn. You can only bring 3. So some of them are going to be coming in later. So you're going to want to stagger them according to speed. And then lastly, cross the river with the 3 crossing points. Maybe less activations on offense works well for you because you can only squeeze so many units through at one time.
That's very true.
So I think on 2 of the scenarios, it's a wash for the points. On 1, you have an advantage on offense with Oathmarks, and then Chance Encounter is probably a wash. But across the river, I think you definitely want less activations trying to cross the river.
Yeah, yeah. On the whole, I definitely agree that the Chance Encounter one, I think, if you've got too many units, like as you said, the last couple of 2, especially if you're rolling badly and they're not coming on, and sort of you get to turn 4 or 5, the units going on at that time aren't probably going to get to the back of the table, unless you got a level 4 or 5 elf mage firing off glamour all over the place, which I've seen done.
Now there's a ton of other scenarios out there through the various missions that Mr. McCall has given us, and one of my favorites is the Delay Them mission that you played at UK Games Day #1.
Yes.
Where depending on the particular scenario you're playing, it's going to go back and forth on what you're going to want, but you generally don't know what scenario you're going to be playing prior to the battle. So part of it's just going to be feel, and part of it's just going to be luck.
Absolutely. No, I definitely think so. So yeah,
Okay.
excellent. So we're going to move on to speed.
Yeah, speed, as we've talked about on the podcast before, takes two forms. You have the speed in inches that your units are going to move, but then you also have nimble, which allows them to move through terrain.
Yes.
And I think speed is probably underappreciated when it comes to battlefield tactics.
Okay.
Now, as a man who plays a lot of cavalry, you'll know the importance of getting a charge off with them.
I'm very aware of it. Yeah, definitely.
And orcs and goblins also like to get that charge off, but they don't have the speed necessary to do it. So if you imagine a unit of cavalry and a unit of orcs facing off against each other, if they're within 9 inches, whoever wins initiative is going to make that charge and becomes very important.
Yeah.
Once they're between 9.1 inches and cavalry can move 12, so let's say 12 inches,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who wins initiative at that point. If they're both going to be going forward, only the cavalry unit can make that charge. The orcs can only get so close, but can't close the distance. So in those rounds where the two forces are starting to approach each other, a canny player is going to be doing some measurements and putting their speedier units at a place where they can charge the enemy, but can't be charged.
Yes.
And early on in the game, that can make a world of difference as to how things play out.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like I say. I mean, I'm always sort of getting if I'm playing a 2,000 point game, I might have 1 unit of cavalry. If I'm playing 2.5, I might have sometimes I'll have 2 units on there. So I'm definitely sort of pushing it up. I want to use that speed of the horse to get ready so I can smash into them. And like you said, if you're fighting against dwarfs, which I have done, or you know that they're not going to be able to hit you, so you're manoeuvring, ready to and you can sit there for a turn and still sometimes let them come on, and you go, oh, I know you can't do anything, and so I'm going to go over here, and you're going to have to go, oh, what am I going to do here? Because he's going to charge me whatever I'm going to do. And the answer, move backwards. But then you've done, depending on the scenario, you've said, they've done a job there as well if they're moving backwards, because they're not going to be engaged with anything.
Yeah, and you can outrun units. You can't outrun them forever because it's a 6x4 board.
Yes.
But the more turns that you can outrun them, the more chances you are going to have to cut them down before they get to you. And so that's another important point as you're moving forces back, but shooting bows while doing it. The opponent's speed plays a huge part in that calculation. Like if you're faced against enemy cavalry and you're going to move back 3 inches, that's not going to quite do the trick normally. Certainly not the same way it's going to do if you're fighting dwarves in heavy armor who can only move 4.
Yes.
And you're moving back 3 every turn. They're just gaining 3 inches per turn before you run out of room eventually. So that's another way in which speed really impacts your ability to either avoid engagement or, like we were talking earlier, start that engagement at the time and place you want to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just, what's your, we're talking of speed. So, fleet feet. I mean, it's not a spell I use very often. Mostly because I've got elves and cavalry and the like. But with the dwarves and stuff like that, personally, I think it's okay for the first couple of turns, and then it just loses its point because you're either getting into where you're going to want to be, or that the opposing players is closed in, so it doesn't matter if you've got those extra 2 inches.
Yeah, it's really important early in the game, and then, like you says, it dwindles after that. There's a couple of our spells that kind of help you out there. So the humans have both Stolen March, which allows you to make an extra move, but not into a charge, and then the spell that allows you to maneuver a unit
for free
outside of their turn for free. And then there's some counter maneuver spells in there as well, with Tangle Feet probably being the one that impacts you most, even more than Mud or anything than that. So
No,
Those are important things to keep in mind that can, if you're playing dwarves, help even the odds with a couple of fleet feet cast, or stack odds farther in your favor if you're playing something a little swifter than dwarves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I could definitely see the point of it. If you've got dwarf line breakers, you can take them up to 6 inches at 9-inch moves. You're moving like everybody else, and that's good all throughout the whole battle. But if you're talking, I think, your standard, everybody else but the dwarfs. I think I've just not seen anybody use. I'm not saying that it is. I've just never seen anybody use it, those extra few inches, in a way that's changed the game. So, but definitely, that, like you said, I tried it a couple of times, doing a bit of oblique movement with the speed. So that's quite useful with rangers and on horseback. So that, because they could definitely run away, and drawing people in to attack them, leaving for a turn, then withdraw, and then and do a bit of that. That worked really well for me once. And so that extra bit of that hit and run tactics you can get off the mounted rangers from, the humans are going to be able to do that as well. So and you're going to get the 2 dice for the humans as well, which is even tastier, because if you lose a casualty, you're going to stick with those 5 dice when you're putting the arrows in. So yeah, no, I think getting across the table is very important, and getting into that action, especially where the scenarios are turn-based, which there are a few out there. So,
well, going back to some of those scenarios, I think chance encounter with fleet feet, you can really start pressing your enemy.
Yeah.
And overwhelming him, especially if he has any sorts of issues bringing units onto the table. That can certainly help you out. And then crossing the river scenario is, it's kind of a race up to those fords, and the bridge, of course. I don't necessarily think you can win that race as the attacker, but you can certainly put some pressure on him earlier by getting fleet feet off early. So it does lose its flavor, advantage, whatever you want to call it, later on in the game, but early on it can certainly help you gain an upper hand on your opponent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's definitely a key, essential to the game. So,
I think the last thing I want to discuss is the nimble keyword, because if you ever play a game on a board that has a lot of terrain that's difficult, nimble is such a good keyword for you.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I don't know how other people put their terrain out. We came up with a little chart of, and you roll a d6 to see how much terrain you're going to put down, and then you can roll to see what you get. There's loads of war games rules out there that do exactly the same, and you can go and find quickly and easily to do, or just spend 10 minutes and do your own. And I'm always, as an elf player, I'm always trying to chuck out woods and rough ground and stuff like that, because I've got spiders, I've got wolvers, I've got rangers. So I want those things, and my hunt pack as well. So I want those things.
Yeah, when you don't have them, you definitely miss them if you played with them before, because just it's painful whenever you have to make a maneuver in the woods and that automatically ends your turn.
Yes.
So it really limits your ability to take it to the enemy, where that simple keyword of nimble is going to help you out there. Now, the elves have a pretty good spell, which gives a unit nimble, which can be pretty fantastic. And I think it's just for a turn, but that, putting that on a unit that your opponent didn't see coming through those woods can definitely turn the tide of the battle in your favor.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if you think about it, if we cast that, or you can do the opposite and you cast the nimble onto a cavalry unit that has to roll to get into cover, all of a sudden is nimble. I'm pretty sure that is okay as a rule, isn't it?
It's really unclear.
I was just gonna say it's not. Yeah, it's maybe a bit cheesy, but I'll have to try it.
But point taken, even if you have to roll, elves aren't worried about failing that activation roll, charging into a unit. The fact that
No.
you can maneuver, then charge full speed means that it might be worthwhile even having to take that chance. And that spell name is called Pathfinder, which is the same as a heroic ability, which does the same thing, and that's allows you to do that. Okay, and Pathfinder stays in play as far as the Elven spell is concerned. So for the rest of the game, they're going to be nimble, which, depending on the terrain, can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm to be honest, I've never used the spell as an elf player, because I usually, like I said, I've got rangers and wolvers and spiders to do that for me. But there's nothing to say that if I took a high enough level, playing on, depending on points I'm playing as well, high enough level mage to go ahead and stick that in his back pocket, and fly it off with glamour, nimble. You do all sorts of horrible things to people.
So that pretty much wraps up speed for me. Just, both the amount you can move in inches and then also the ability to move through terrain, both of those cases. Apply to your battlefield tactics, as does the activation count for you and your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So yeah, no, it's all important parts of the game, and easy bits to forget, I think, when we set it down, and we really take some consideration into that. And when certainly when you're building your army up, that's how you want to play. But like I said, I'm doing Death Stars and you're not, so I'm yet to use skirmishers. I keep getting tempted to do that, but I haven't picked that in my current kingdom anyway, so that's not an option for me. But
I'm not saying I don't have the occasional Mon Calamari cruiser, in my fleet. I do have some big ships or big units. I just tend to balance those out a lot more with some smaller units than, say, Chris does.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, recently I've not been doing so well, so maybe I need to sort of take a long look at that and think maybe it wouldn't hurt to do something like that, and see if I can't change my battle tactics. That's the other thing, is if you've been playing the same players for a while and stuff like that, they're kind of used to what you're doing, and then you go and change it up and turn up with small units and lots of running around, and they're going, huh? Yeah. It's always mess with people's heads.
Take a second look at your kingdom and see what else you can bring that might give them a surprise.
Absolutely. I mean, our campaign, you can go and capture. We've got beyond the 10 that you can go capture and hold, and it can take a couple of turns. You can tear stuff down and rebuild stuff. So if I could capture somewhere, maybe I will build that skirmish grounds.
This is going to be a controversial statement, Matt, and I was debating whether to lead off with it or not say it at all. I'm just going to go ahead for it now.
Do it.
And that is, if you play with just big chunky units, you're a pretty simple man, and you like to keep things simple. You go with multiple small units with some larger units combined in there, you're a real thinker. Now, the problem with us real thinkers is we tend to overthink things, and our plans never work out the way we intend. So your individual results may vary, as usual.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, no, I think I do. I'm definitely a keep it simple stupid. I am the stupid, and I do keep it simple. But that's funny. I do. Yeah, I like just hitting people with lots of numbers, and that's what I like to do. Because their faces on when you go. Okay, I'm now going to hit you. What you on? I'm hitting on 2s. Oh, I'm going to lose loads. Yes, you are.
Don't have to worry about flanking or anything else. You just kind of roll up to them and run over them.
Bang! Like, that's my best unit. I know. Oh no, excellent. Right, that's brilliant. So we're going to move on to the 10 questions.
This will be my first time playing 10 questions, so I'm a little nervous. And I should congratulate you on finally getting 3 out of 3 on quiz time. Although apparently any answer that you gave on episode 40 was the correct answer. So
yes.
Well done there.
Yeah, I'm proud.
Join in the club.
It's all fixed, Governor. Okay, I'm just gonna get my. He says, "Stopwatch ready."
How much time do I have for this?
Yeah, well, I've kind of changed it so it's 10 questions in 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It got to the point where people weren't necessarily getting all the questions correctly. So we get to 3 minutes and see how many you got, and we'll go from there. If you do it before then, fantastic. If you don't, we'll just count how many you have got.
Okay. All right.
So
top 10 answers on the board. That's an American game show there for you.
Oh, is it? I don't know what that is.
Family Feud.
Oh, right. Oh, we call that Family Fortunes over here.
Oh, no.
It's got the thing, it goes.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, yeah. We call it, Family Fortunes.
Oh, that's so much more civil.
Yes. So, but yeah, no, it's gonna be starting. Okay. And okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, if I'm doing a flank attack, what's the modifier?
+1 attack.
Absolutely. If I am being attacked in the rear,
-1 attack.
Absolutely. Okay.
No laughing, you're wasting my time.
Sorry, mate. If I've got 2 spiders, how many dice have I got? Attack dice.
You're gonna have 4.
I am. How many? What's the activation of a skeleton unit?
3.
It is. How many dice do I roll for a revenant unit when I activate them?
2, unless you're in command range, in which you would roll 3.
Okay. If I am a necromancer, and I die, and I'm the only one on the table, what would happen to any units that are skeletons?
They all disappear.
Okay. When I am going to push you back, what's the distances I'm allowed to push back at?
1 or 6.
Absolutely. If I am going to hit you with 3 ranks of troops, what's my modifier?
+2.
It is. Okay. I'm shooting with 3 ranks of human archers. What's my shoot factor?
You're shoot 4.
I am. And the final question is, if I've got 5 casualties on a 3 rank unit, what our human unit of warriors, what is my roll to pass my morale required?
This was in melee?
Yes.
You need a 9.
Yes, indeed, I do. That's 2 minutes and 2 seconds on 10 out of 10, sir.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm pretty sure you are the champione at that one.
So here in the United States, we're big on American football, as you know. I want to see if there's a European or English equivalent to this. There was a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, which they say is the nation's team, but it's not, named Tony Romo. And he was good, but not great. But as a broadcaster, he seems absolutely omnipotent. Like he knows exactly what's going on, what's going to happen. So not great on the field, but great in the broadcast booth. I feel like I'm Tony Romo of Oathmark. I can't win many games, but you put me on a show like this, and I go 10 for 10 in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Exactly, and you get that. Yeah, I think I got all mine right, but I definitely didn't do it as quickly as that. I know I didn't do it as quickly as that. So you've done well, sir. And I do apologise for the laughing.
No, I was just teasing. I don't win a prize for this, do I? Do I?
I I haven't got any prizes.
That's okay.
I could send you. I don't know. I can send
No,
you.
no.
I could send. I actually, we've got some time, so I'm going to. We normally would jump straight into the silly question, but we've got some extra time, so I just thought I'd ask a few questions, and feel free to not answer them. But
Sure. But if I could just start with, I think we need to get Chris back on, and instead of giving him 10 questions, we should do scenario-based questions for him. Like, if you have a magic user in a unit, the unit gets destroyed, but the magic user survives, can he then join another unit that's nearby and see how he answers those?
I think that would be very good. We could definitely do that.
Okay, scenario-based questions.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
So send me your questions, sir. I'll answer any and everything.
Yeah. We'll write some of them up and give him 10 minutes when he tries to flick through the rule book. We love you, Chris. Really. Not really. We just do love you, Chris. But, so a couple of questions. I mean, one big one is, you said you're going to hopefully record. Does that mean we are going to see War Corgi back in action in the not so distant future? Is it going to be bits and pieces? From my point of view, you were the thing that dragged me ecstatically into this game. So I'm coming from I'm a big fan, mate, and I always enjoyed your podcast. No, your YouTube.
That's a really great question. I don't mind getting personal about this. So to answer the question directly, yes, I plan to start uploading content on a regular basis again. So it's mentioned time to time. I don't make a big deal out of it, but I was in the U.S. Army for 25 years. Yes. And I did 2 combat rotations in Iraq and 3 in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And when the Afghan government collapsed this summer, it hit me like a freight train. I didn't think I was suffering from any sort of PTSD issues, but I definitely was, and that was the trigger for me. And so things have been a real struggle for me since June, July, August especially. Mm-hmm. And I've been working with the U.S. Veterans Administration to get my head straight on that type of stuff. But my ability to take on tasks and complete them has been not where it used to be. Yeah. So as I continue to get treatment for my PTSD and depression, the hope is that I can go back to doing the things that I really enjoyed and kind of moved away from as I, just dealt with that whole devastating situation over there. So yes, hopefully be back and better than ever.
Well, first, personally, I was aware of some of what was going on anyway, because Chris was sort of mentioned some bits and pieces, and I know you alluded to it before to me. So, mate, I think you coming out on to something like this and saying that's really important. I've suffered from mental health issues, not in the same way as you have. I don't hold myself back from it. I've got my own issues. I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on here, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. So it's different, but it's to say something like that on this podcast is amazing, and I can't just say enough that I'm really looking forward to you coming back and doing that, and it's great to see that you're on your road to current recovery, mate. So thank you for sharing something like that personally. I mean, I found wargaming, painting, so just helped my head out really massively, especially in the early stages of my recovery. Yeah.
Absolutely. The stuff you do by yourself hobbying, and then the forced interaction that you have with other people and making friendships and maintaining friendships, all of that's really important. And wargaming helps me immensely when it comes to those things.
Yeah, no, and it's it's important that I think as we're of a certain age, mate, and I think there's a lot out there. When we grew up, it was boys don't cry, we don't talk about this stuff, and da 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 da. I think it's so super important to bring these things up and say it's okay to to express that you're not well when you're not well, and I know for one that I'm grateful that you're getting better, mate. So thank you.
Well, I feel like I'm a pretty tough dude. Like maybe not in a fist fight, but I've been through a lot. But eventually, unless you're really, really lucky, it creeps up on you, and you can. Thank God we live in a time where there are resources available to people. So if you're a veteran and you kind of struggled with your service, especially in Afghanistan, it was a huge uptick of people seeking help over here. And that's exactly why the VA is there, and that's what you need to do, because the world's a better place with you here.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, we don't want. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't say anymore. The world can be a dark place on your own, and there's lots of people out here that are willing to listen. I may not have an experience around that Michael's had, or Michael's not had the same issues as I have, but we understand dark places, and yeah, it's good. It's good to talk.
I feel like we just had an Oprah moment here.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to jump up and on the sofa and tell Oprah that I love her so much. No. Oh, that was wrong. Anyway.
No, that was good. That was good. So when I do come back, I've been growing my hair out, so you get nothing crazy. Don't think, Samson or anything over here, but growing the hair out a little bit, so I'm looking forward to
18. It's the 18-inch moustache that gets me.
That'll be shaved before I appear on video, that's for sure.
Oh dear. No, it's good to hear your voice again, my friend, and it's good to have you back on here and get you back on and make it a regular thing, obviously, as we go forward. So I'll look forward to that happening. So we will move on to our final subject, which is the silly question. So my silly question to you is, because I've seen them, what army do you think your corgis would pick?
Oh, so you're talking about Arwen and Piper, my two
Absolutely.
corgis. Now, Arwen is a 12-and-a-half-year-old Pembroke Welsh corgi, and she, like, if you look at a corgi in the Kennel Society and they have a picture of it, it could be Arwen. She is breed standard. She's super smart. I picked her up myself, so she is a right and proper and would fit right in at Buckingham Palace
With the queen.
So I think she would definitely go for the elves. I mean, she's named after Arwen Evenstar.
Yes.
From Lord of the Rings, and she is stately. Now, Piper, we got as a Christmas present for our kids, and I went to the same breeder, and they had 8 puppies to choose from, and 7 were just really solid, beautiful Pembroke Welsh Corgi puppies. And then we had Piper. Now, I would not have chosen Piper, but when you bring 3 kids to pick out a dog, their argument was, if we don't adopt Piper, no one will. Because she has a blue eye. She's got these really long legs for a corgi. She's got this small head. She's as sweet as can be, but she's a little wild compared to Arwen. Okay. So I think she would definitely go the orc and goblin route. Just out there running around the battlefield, charging wild. And they're sisters, but they cannot be farther apart. And I say sisters, they're 4 years apart, but they do both call me dad. So that's where they would go. I think Arwen with the elves would focus on the very elegant cavalry and would have a bunch of banners flying like the historical wargamers do. Oh yeah, well painted. Piper, not so much. Like, she would paint I mean, better than Chris, but not well. Just crazy colors, all kinds of different units. Probably no theme, nothing there. So it'd be a little bit different for the two of them.
Well, that sounds excellent. I'm looking forward when I come over to meeting them anyway. So I shall smuggle dog treats in the bag. I don't know. I've got them in America, but
So for sure, I have it on good authority that under the tables at Buckingham Palace as treat dispensers.
Oh, excellent.
And when the dogs used to come up, when the Queen had corgis, you could just get a treat from under the table and feed it to them.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
We don't have that here.
No.
So bring your own treats is what I'm trying to tell you.
I will definitely bring my own treats and give them to them. So I'm looking forward to meeting them and their crazy armies. Anyway, right. I am going to wrap up, and I'm going to just say, Michael, it's been a pleasure to co-host with you today. Thank you. And, guys, I hope you've enjoyed what we've had to say. And I'd like to just say, Michael, would you like to say goodbye?
Once again, congratulations on taking over the hosting duties. No pressure here, Matt, but this is the only Oathmark podcast, as Joseph A. McCullough pointed out. So if the thing goes belly up, well, Osprey might close down.
It's down to me.
It is down to you at this point. I don't know how it got here, but that's not important. The fact is, we're here now, and you are the man. If you ever need any help with anything, you got me as a resource, brother, and I'm always happy to come on.
Oh, absolutely. I think Chris had asked about 10 people before me, and they all said no, so he was just left with me. So that was the end of the conversation. So
that means I was probably number 12 on the list.
Could well be. Anyway, guys, I'm going to say good night, good morning, and good afternoon wherever you are, and enjoy your gaming.